some rooms just feel right. Hi everyone, it's interior designer Carol Gilman. Let's discover interior design. Well, in this video, we're going to talk about one of the design principles, rhythm, that contributes to helping a room look and feel just right. And we are going to explore how the design principle of rhythm does that and how it really does contribute to a room that is harmonious. First thing, let's take a look at what are the interior design principles. Well, I always kind of think of them just as a guide of what we need to include in our room, in our homes, in a design so that it looks and feels right. And when we incorporate all of these different interior design principles, including rhythm, it really does contribute to a room, a design that is harmonious. When we talk about the design principle of rhythm, rhythm has to do with movement, and we can think about that in music. It's the same thing, except it's in a visual way. So when we are including rhythm, when we're intentionally thinking about rhythm in a room, creating rhythm in a room, we are wanting to create visual movement and guiding our eyes. And we can think of this in different ways, just like in different types of rhythm in music, we can create different types of rhythm in a room. In this video, we'll talk about a steady, regular rhythm and what that does to create a good design in a room, as well as what could be referred to as maybe a more interrupted rhythm, where we kind of break things up a little bit. So the first one, let's take a look at a steady, regular rhythm and how we create that. We can create a steady, regular rhythm in a room just by using repetition. And when we are repeating something in a room, whether that is a color or materials or textures, anything that we use in a room or even style, it creates a sense of cohesiveness. It guides our eyes around a room, helping us to feel calm because we are connecting everything that is related or similar. A really good example of where we use repetition in a room to help us create a cohesive look and a harmonious design is just when we paint all the walls, for example, in one wall paint color. And because those walls take up a lot of space in our room, that's a big area that we are looking at. And when all of the walls are painted in one color, it connects that entire room. It helps to bring everything together. So in this room, for example, we can see that all of the walls and the ceiling is painted in the same color. And that's especially helpful when you have one room that opens up into another room. It helps us to create a sense of connectedness, and that steady, regular rhythm is really helpful in creating that feeling of having everything tied in. Another example of this is when we use it in smaller amounts. So say we are just going to repeat the paint or the metal finish on the architectural lighting in a room. So the lighting that is hardwired, say, into the ceiling, like a chandelier or a pendant light, or even a ceiling fan. So in this example, we can really see that into practice. We'll notice that there is a chandelier over the dining room area. There's a chandelier in the entryway area, and there is a ceiling fan in the living room area. And just in those small amounts, just because all three of those are painted in a white finish or a white color, it helps to tie everything together. It's a steady rhythm, maybe a little bit more broken up, and we have to kind of connect all those dots by looking at all three of those light fixtures. but it's still a very consistent and steady rhythm, just to help tie everything together. One thing that's really important when we are working with rhythm and we want to create a steady, regular rhythm in a room is the concept of visual pathways, or what we could refer to as sightlines. So ideally, it's nice when we're in a room and we can see things very easily. We can see from one area of the room to another feature or area of the room without having our visual pathways blocked. This room is a good example of that. When we're standing in this position where that person took a photograph of this room, we can see the bed and the dresser, but in the distance we can also see the window and the view outside. If this room was set up in a different way and it was kind of blocking some of those features, it wouldn't be as successful. And all of this is contributing to what we could call flow, so that everything kind of flows easily from one area of the room to the other. The other thing that is happening is that when we do see something else in a room, say that window over there on the other wall, we can also see that there's a path to get over to that other area of the room. So all of that steady rhythm, that regular rhythm of repetition in a room, as well as making sure that we see everything, that nothing is interrupting our visual pathways, helps us feel good and helps to contribute to a nice flow to a room. And that room is just going to feel and look a little bit better than one that isn't planned out with those different elements. But there's another type of rhythm that we want to use in a room so that a steady rhythm, a regular rhythm, is not too monotonous. And that's where we want to kind of interrupt things a little bit. And a focal area is a really good example of that. A focal area is an area of emphasis where it really does grab our attention. And in a way, that kind of interrupts maybe a flow of repetition, a flow, a regular rhythm that is happening in a room. But there's a reason why we're doing that. We want to kind of change things up a little bit and interrupt things a little bit. And we want to create a focal area somewhere where our eyes will be drawn to. So this living room is a good example of that. They are using a nice, regular, steady rhythm of repeating the colors on the walls, and the furniture has the same color of upholstery. But then at the fireplace wall, they're changing everything up. They painted the wall a green color, plus on top of it, the fireplace is over there with all this beautiful stone, and also there's some built-in cabinets. It really does become a very important feature in that room. It's interrupting that kind of steady rhythm that's going on with repetition in other areas of the room. But it's really important so that things are interesting and so that that room is not monotonous. And when we're talking about the design principles, we're always overlapping with other design principles because a focal area is what we could think of as part of the design principle of emphasis. So a focal area is an area where we really want to grab our attention and guide our eyes over to that area. So when we are designing a room, we are thinking about all of the design principles as well. And if you want to learn more about the other design principles, I'll leave a link to my playlist in this video's description. Another reason or an area where we may want to interrupt this smooth, steady rhythm in a room is where maybe we want to separate areas. This room is a good example of that. This apartment has a kitchen area and a dining area, but also a sleeping area. And just to subtly kind of separate those areas, they've built in this partition. And that interrupts that flow just a little bit, but not so much that we still don't feel a connection between these different areas. Because that partition is designed in a way where it has openings in it. We could also think of, say, an open shelf would provide the same look. And because of that, we're still able to see through the partition in those open areas, but it also gives us a sense that there are separate little purposes happening in that room. And that helps to add some variety to the room, helps to kind of break things up just in a smaller amount. Another example where we may need to kind of interrupt things a little bit would be if we had a dining room area that's right next to a window, and we need to buy a chandelier to place over that dining room table. But we want to keep in mind that we want to have a nice flow. We're using repetition, and we want to keep our visual pathways open so that we can look out through the window and look at the view or look to other sides of the room. So what should we think about when we want to find a chandelier or a pendant light to hang over that dining room table so it interrupts that flow in a minimal way? Well, it goes back to that partition design. When you want to still enjoy the view outside and try to minimize obstructing that view with a dining room table next to a window, then look for a chandelier that's in a design where it's more open and where there are areas, just like in that partition, where you can look through and still see outside. So just by thinking of a design that will minimize any interruption in the nice repetition, that nice steady flow of a type of rhythm, but also kind of interrupting it just a little bit, just to add some interest. That's where we can think about a design of a chandelier, for example, that will help to minimize that interruption and still keep those visual pathways open. And an easy way to kind of interrupt a rhythm in a room where there's lots of repetition going on is to use patterns. This living room is a good example of that. On the sofa, they are using some patterned pillows and even a patterned throw blanket. And just by using a pattern, it kind of interrupts things just a little bit and makes that room a little bit more interesting. So a room that just looks and feels right is using rhythm to help it look and feel that way. When you are designing a room, make sure to incorporate a steady, regular rhythm by using repetition, but also think about how you can kind of interrupt things a little bit and to create more variety. Let me know if you have any questions and if you have anything else they can add to this discussion on rhythm. Thanks so much for watching, and I look forward to seeing you next time. Take care.